A reading from Praying with Saint Nicholas, a Christmas devotional by Matt Michelatos. Chapter 1, A Prayer for the Future. Theophanes and Nona had everything a person could want: a loving relationship, a deep spiritual life, a high social standing, and the respect of the city. More money than they could spend in their lifetime. But they wrestled with unhappiness and dissatisfaction. They wanted, more than anything, a child of their own. They prayed for a child, but their prayers, it seemed, went unanswered, even when they promised God that they would dedicate their child to God's service. Worried that their hearts might become hardened by this unanswered prayer, Theophanes and Nona started a practice that would become a habit of their lives. They began to seek out the poor and downtrodden of the town and provide for them. If they couldn't have a child, at least, they could care for those around them. As they turned their lives toward the poor, they found that their sadness about not having a child lessened over time. When Nona did become pregnant, they were surprised, shocked, and overjoyed. They immediately made good on the promises they had made in their prayers. They named the boy Nicholas after the local Christian abbot, who was either Theophanes or Nona's brother, we're not sure which, with the idea that young Nicholas, like his uncle, would grow into a man who dedicated his entire life to God. Hello and welcome to today's Heart Lift with Janelle. I am Janelle, your guide for this beautiful Advent season. We are making our way towards Christmas, and I've grabbed a cup of something hot and delicious as it's very chilly here in Virginia today. It is a beautiful decaf hot cinnamon spice by Harney & Sons, and I'm telling you, it is delicious. Nothing better for an afternoon cuppa. We're beginning a beautiful journey through Praying with Saint Nicholas, a Christmas devotional written by the one and only Matt Michelatos. I had the distinct honor and privilege of sitting with Matt and talking about this gorgeous book about one of my favorites, Saint Nicholas. When my children were littles, I taught them all about the saints behind the celebrations, and sure, we had a lot of fun with Santa Claus, but I loved teaching them about Saint Nicholas. And Matt has written, just a beautiful account of the life of Saint Nicholas. And I don't want to rush through it, so I've decided to spend all this month reading about Saint Nicholas, talking about his beautiful life and mission and the work that he did, and how we can relate that to the lives that we are living today. If you haven't already, I want to encourage you to grab up your very own The Great Glimmer Hunt Advent PDF. It is free and it's waiting for you over on my website, JanelleRaridan.com. Just click that button and you will see a pop-up, and you just download the free PDF. It's a beautiful, stunning guide. I created it myself for you so that you could have an Advent glimmering hunt. Now, along this hunt, we're also going to be reading 1 John 4, verses 7 through 21. You will see at the end of the guide a calendar with the scripture of the day. You can print that, cut it up, put it on your refrigerator, or make a beautiful little banner out of it. Be creative. It's the season for creativity, for whimsy and magic and beautiful things. Well, you might ask, Janelle, why 1 John 4, 7 through 21? Well, if you are part of our HeartLift Central community, you know that I have been spending quite a bit of time in this passage in the New Testament over the last few years. I've been on a journey to really grasp and fully understand the love that God has for me. And for you. I thought I understood it. I thought I knew it. But a few years ago, I came into a dark night of the soul in which I was awakened in the middle of the night and heard a God whisper, which is rare. I have only really heard a few in my lifetime, if I'm honest. Read 1 John 4, Janelle. And so I did. And it has been a life-altering portion of Scripture full of wisdom and truth. And when we can grasp the love that God has for us individually and then corporately as a community of faith followers, it is life-changing because love changes everything it touches. Love changes everything it touches. And in my experience on my life journey, I have found, am finding, and probably will always find, that loving another human being is perhaps the most challenging thing we'll ever be invited to do. And I also believe that it's imperative that we learn how to love others well. And that starts, yes, with loving God, because God is love. And then in loving God, He shows us our value, our worth, and our dignity. And when we embrace how much He loves us, it really changes everything. So we're going to be going through 1 John 4, 7 through 21 here on the podcast, on HeartLift Central on Substack, and on Instagram. So please engage, please subscribe. First, subscribe to the podcast, of course, and leave a review. I am begging you today on this Giving Tuesday, this international day that gives itself to the beautiful radical generosity of the human spirit, if you would be so kind to subscribe and review the podcast wherever you listen, be it Apple, Spotify, my platform is Buzzsprout, I post it to Substack. Wherever you subscribe or wherever you listen to music and podcast, please subscribe to today's HeartLift with Janelle and leave a review. One sentence is all that this podcast needs to expand its horizons. It's everything. Second, on this Giving Tuesday, I am just asking you, out of the kindness of your heart and out of your radical generosity, if perhaps you would give a small donation to the podcast, either on Buzzsprout. You'll see it in the show notes. It just says support the show. Click on that. $1, $3, $5. Whatever you can give will help this podcast expand its reach. We are under the covering of HeartLift International, my 501c3. And my 501c3 is a nonprofit absolutely dedicated to bridging the gap between faith and mental health and bringing resources, the podcast, information, teaching, counseling, coaching to the families in our communities so that every child born into this world can receive a safe, secure place in which to grow. That is the ultimate goal. We're taking baby steps, and every day is another baby step. It takes a while for some of us to learn to walk as children, doesn't it? So I'm just taking a moment today to thank you in advance. Thank you for all of you who have already given of your very hard-earned money to support me and the work of my hands. I appreciate it so much. Before we begin our conversation with Matt, I want to tell you a little about him. Matt is an author, a screenwriter, and a former missionary who lives in the Portland, Oregon area with his wife and 3 daughters. He's the co-author of Praying with St. Patrick with Aaron Burns and the award-winning Loving Disagreement with Kathy Kang. You will also hear Matt and I talk about his book, Sky Lantern, which is an extraordinary story of a seeming miracle that happened in Matt's own yard. Matt is a creative extraordinaire, and it's just such an honor to have him here on the show. So will you please welcome Matt, Heartlifters, to the show. Oh, Heartlifters, are you ready? Buckle up, buckle up. It's Christmas time, and we are going to be talking about Praying with St. Nicholas, a Christmas devotional written by the one and only Matt Michaelatus. Oh, Matt, I forgot to ask you how to say your last name.
That's correct. Yeah, that's how we say it anyway. Well, it's Greek, but we live in the U.S., and it was my grandfather who came over. And so that's our best guess. That's how we say it.
Matt Michaelatus.
Yeah.
Look at you, you're Greek, as was St. Nicholas.
Correct, that's true.
It's so fun. Well, Heartlifters, we've been having way too much fun. Sorry you're not in on it. You are now, though. Matt is an incredible creative, and I have already told you about all the things he does. But today we're going to talk about St. Nicholas. But before we get started, I wanted to ask you a few questions about your second book, Sky Lantern, or third, fourth, fifth?
I don't remember what number it was, but yeah, it was. Sure, I'd love to talk about Sky Lantern.
I mean, Sky Lanterns just take my breath away. And today, my sweet little Elena Rose, you all know, my 3.5-year-old granddaughter, lives in Belgium. And at their school, they were having a lantern festival in honor of St. Martin. So I thought, I have to ask Matt today why you wrote this book. I know the premise, but I can't even believe, it's like almost unbelievable that someone's Sky Lantern landed in your front yard.
Right.
Backyard.
My wife sometimes calls me the weird magnet. She says strange things always happen to us when we're out and about.
So familiar.
And then this really was one of them. So this someone sent a Sky Lantern, which, it's a little paper balloon sort of that you light a fire under it, and it rises into the air. And it landed in my front yard during a really terrible storm, actually, and I thought it was trash. Yeah. I went out to get it, and I picked it up, and written on it was, Dad, I miss you so much, and then a heart, and this woman's name's Steph. And I was I have 3 daughters. I was so struck. I was just struck to the heart by it. And I still threw it away, which I shouldn't have. I should have kept it. But I went and I wrote a letter that night that I put online that just talked about Steph as a father. I don't know what your whole situation is, but if he was a good father, he loved you. He was proud of you, and he wanted good things for your life. Put this letter up, didn't think anything of it, just was sharing what I was feeling. I went to bed that night, and when I got up the next morning, it had tens of thousands of shares on it. Was traveling around the world. I had no idea, actually. I found out because my middle daughter came downstairs. I was doing the dishes and gave me a hug and looked like she'd been crying. I was like, what is what is going on? And then I went upstairs and my wife was sitting on our bed and she was crying. I was like, what's happening? And she
Oh
goes,
my gosh.
everyone's sharing your letter. So we read it this morning. I was like,
Oh,
oh. And so, yeah, a number of people. I mean, I actually took, I think, 2 weeks off work, which I was a minister at the time. So it was
mm,
flexible
mm.
and just answered letters from people writing me about their dads.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
And then through a series of events, it's a long story, but eventually the woman Steph, we got in touch with each other.
That's
Incredible person.
nice.
We're still in touch today. And
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah,
That's
it's quite a
amazing.
story, an amazing thing.
Right in your front yard.
Right in our front yard.
So you have to get that book, Heartlifters, because it's an inspirational book. And I think that would also be a great addition when you give away the St. Nicholas book to give Sky Lantern with it. Because I just think what it says to me, Matt, what really got to me, because I'm always trying to think, I'm in a very huge transitional phase in my life
Hmm.
again. Christmas is approaching and
Right.
Advent, and I think okay, what can be different this year? What perhaps can
Hmm.
I focus on or offer this Advent and Christmas season that perhaps is in line with where I am in my life? And when you just said it, they call you the weird magnet. I definitely am a magnet, and sometimes you want to be, and sometimes you don't. But I think what's happening, at least in my senses, my time with God, is we really need a lot more magnets in the world that
Hmm.
are bringing people to light, to joy,
Hmm.
to hope, because there is an awful lot of darkness. And so I just love the fact that a sky lantern showed up in
Amazing,
your
right?
front yard. It's like, this
It's one
is
of those moments. My
nuts.
my wife really has a gift of faith, and I
Oh.
have the gift of just arguing with God, I think, a lot of times, and being cynical about various things.
Oh, you've been through a lot,
And
though. You were a
she
pastor, minister.
That's part of it for sure. But my wife is so amazing. She's the one that reminds me when I'm like, I don't know, what's really going on. She's like, you think God had nothing to do with that lantern landing in your yard? And that's those moments where it's not really a weird magnet, right? It's this openness to the
Hmm.
opportunities that God is placing in front of us. I could have
That's it.
taken that same thing, had a feeling about my kids and gone, oh, I love those guys, and just thrown that thing
Yep.
away and just gone about my day. And that
Hmm.
that wouldn't have been, I don't think it would have been sinful. It would have just
No,
been missing an opportunity.
I think that's
That,
right.
yeah. And we have those every day. We have them with our waiters and waitresses. We have them as we're going about our day. We have them with our families,
Hmm.
our neighbors. And yeah, I think most of us miss a bunch of them in any given week. And
Hmm.
hopefully we see and latch onto a few of them.
Yes, it's like Andy Andrews, the brilliant writer himself, when he wrote the book The Noticer.
Right.
I think that it's not that I want to, because I'm so empathic. We were talking about that before I hit
Yeah.
record. I can get really worn out from that, but I think it's just the opportunity, the openness to bring joy and light somewhere. And so many women, particularly women my age, many of you heartlifters know this, feel invisible. They feel
Hmm.
purposeless. You feel as though you don't matter, and that what am I, just a babysitter for the grandkids now? What am I, just a drop-off station? I have heard your comments.
Hmm.
And yet I have recently found renewed vigor in doing some silent things that are really blessing people,
Wow.
just blowing their mind, Maybe I have a
Hmm.
20 in my pocket, I don't know, or something, just
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
Just those small, little, seemingly ridiculous little things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's really
I
beautiful.
think when we get to heaven, that is going to be more of an emphasis than the really great things that we think we're doing. At least
Hmm.
that's what's going on inside of my heart, which is newly back in rhythm. So,
That's great.
Oh my goodness. So, Saint Nicholas, why did you write this book? Where did this book
Uh,
come from? This beautiful book, by the way.
Thank you.
Ooh,
I love Christmas. I've always loved Christmas. And I was thinking about St. Nicholas and realizing that I didn't know that much about him for it
mm-hmm,
being kind of this favorite figure
mm-hmm.
from that I knew maybe two stories. And so when I started doing the research, I realized that I knew two stories, but I actually knew them wrong also.
Oh, okay.
And then I was endlessly fascinated. The more I dug into it, I was like, this is an incredible human being
He is.
who did some amazing things. And almost everything he did, what he's famous for is exactly what you were just talking about, Janelle, which was he noticed the needs of vulnerable people around him,
Yeah.
orphans, children, women,
Mhm.
and he tried to meet those needs. That's what he was famous for, and it's what he's famous for so many centuries later,
I know.
which is incredible that
Mhm.
this person we think so highly of, it's mostly because he lived a life of kind of taking care of not always small, but the needs of the people around him.
Yes, he did.
So
Yeah.
yeah, my kids called it Santa Facts because I would
Hashtag.
emerge from doing research. Yeah, they would be like, hashtag Santa Facts. Dad's about to tell us something else about St. Nicholas. And I'd be like, yeah, I am. Get
Yeah,
ready.
I
This is a
am.
crazy one.
Sit down.
So, like, for instance, so when you first picture St. Nicholas, if you're like me, I pictured him kind of in medieval times. A lot of the stories have this kind of medieval
Hmm.
feeling to them that he's in Europe somewhere,
Yeah.
traipsing around. And so when I discovered that he lived during the Roman Empire and
Right.
that he was born in the country we would now call Turkey and that he was Greek, I was like, wait a minute, what is
Right.
going on?
This is not jolly old
Like
Saint Nicholas.
he's a relatively early in the spread of the church.
Yes.
The church, I mean, church buildings became a thing during his lifetime,
Hmm.
which is incredible.
Well, he ruled at the time, what, fourth century,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
that was, most of us know that was the era of Constantine. But
Yeah.
before Constantine, you tell me where he was born. It's in the book, but just for some reference.
Yeah, so he is born in Patara, which is a little seaside town in what is now Turkey. His family is probably well off.
Yeah.
All of the tradition is that they were relatively rich, kind of merchant family. And yeah, it's 270, I think. Yeah,
Hmm.
270, March 15th, 270 AD.
Crazy.
So his mom and dad are both believers. And Christianity at this time is not what we would think of it today. So
No.
there aren't church buildings as such. Most people are still meeting in homes of some sort, including probably in Nicholas's home because of his family's status. His uncle is a priest, so we do have the beginning of kind of a religious class.
Yeah.
And his uncle's name, by the way, is Nicholas. He's
Mm.
named after his uncle. But what you have to understand about the Roman Empire is it's on the verge of collapse at this time.
Yeah.
There are multiple competing people saying that they're the emperor. There are the beginnings of famines because the roads aren't safe to travel anymore. And it's a community that has become dependent on each other, as most
Mm.
empires are.
Mm.
And so we're seeing a lot of disease, war, all these things happening around them. And
Yeah.
the Christians are starting to get a reputation of the people who show up in the midst of those things. And
Oh.
Nicholas's mother in particular was well known as someone who used her free time to make sure that people had food.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. I love that story.
so yeah, incredible
Mm.
stuff going on. But by this is where things are when Nicholas starts. A little later in his life, a guy named Diocletian becomes emperor, and he starts saying, what happened to the good old days? No one worships the Roman Empire or the Roman gods like they should. It's probably the Christians' fault. And he starts throwing people in jail, cutting
Whew.
people's tongues out,
Mm.
destroying holy books, destroying some of the new churches. So Nicholas ends up spending several years in jail during this time because he's a
Wow.
priest by then. But then by the end of his life, we've gone from the Christians being blamed for everything to the rise of Constantine, who's kind of the
Yes.
first Christian emperor
Mhm.
who says the whole Roman Empire is going to be Christian. And by the end of his life, Nicholas is a bishop and he's being sent money by the Roman Empire to
Wow.
take care of the poor in his city, to make sure the streets are fine,
Mm.
to watch over people. He probably had to fight pirates. Like that was part of
I
his
bet.
job as he was
Mm.
kind of the bishops became sort of governor. They weren't the actual governors, but they became
Hmm.
like the governors and had a lot of power and influence.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all this, Nicholas is someone who is faithful to God during the times of persecution as well as during the times of plenty. And there are real pitfalls on both sides.
Oh, yes.
But he manages to pull it off. And because consistently over and over, his focus is on what are the needs of the people around me and how do I help them?
I know. The most vulnerable.
That's right.
He's doing the true work of God, isn't he? The widows, the children. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where, I mean,
Mm.
probably the most famous story we have about the most well-known story
Hmm.
about Nicholas is the one where, in I'll tell you the actual story. The actual story is as the Roman Empire is collapsing, wealthy people are becoming impoverished. And at the time, if you had a child, a girl, the way you would take care of her was you would marry her into another family and you'd give a bride price, a large amount of money as a
Dowry.
gift, a
Hmm.
dowry, right, into the new family. And if you didn't have a dowry, it meant you probably weren't going to get married to a wealthy person because all the wealthy people did this.
Yeah.
So there was a man who had lost everything except for his three daughters,
Mm.
and he had no money to marry them off, and he didn't have enough money to guarantee that he could care for them into the
Mm.
future. So what he decided was the best thing to do was to essentially sell them into slavery, which was still a thing,
Oh, yeah.
where they
Mm.
would still at least have food. They would be cared for. And if you could find a good master, right, is the thinking, it might be better than starving to death.
Hmm.
Well,
There are
Nicholas
people
heard
in that
about
place
this.
today, actually. You know?
That's absolutely true.
Sorry. Right.
And Nicholas heard about this, and at the time he had some money, and there's a whole other story here. But he snuck to the man's house and he took some money in a bag and he threw it through his window. And this is where we actually get the tradition. In medieval times, they started saying, oh, he dropped it down a chimney. Oh, he tucked
Mm.
it in their socks that were hanging by the fire. Oh, he put it by their shoes. Right. So that's where we get the tradition of stockings
Love
is from
that.
this story as
Okay.
it is retold over the centuries. But what he actually does, he throws the gold in through the window. The man finds it, is shocked, and says, I can marry off one of my daughters, which
Ugh.
he starts to set up. And then later, Nicholas returns with another bag of money for the
No.
second daughter, throws it through the window in the middle of the night, and the father's like, I can't believe this. What is happening?
I can't
And
imagine what
then
is in that man's mind. This is so,
so on the
so amazing.
on the third night, the father says, I have to know who is doing this. So he stays up all night. And when the money hits the floor, he runs out the front and he sees this man running away. A young man, actually. He's probably in his 20s at this time. And
Wow.
the man runs, he tackles him, and he says, who are you? Why are you doing this? And it's Nicholas. And Nicholas says, oh, whoa, whoa. And of course, the guy, he's like, thank you so much. You've saved my daughter's lives. Or you're doing this amazing thing, et cetera, et cetera. And Nicholas says, please, please, please stop saying that. It's not about me. It's
Right.
about God. This is a gift from God to you. It's not about Nicholas. And please,
Yes.
please don't tell anyone that I did this, which
Hmm.
obviously he did, because we're talking about it
We are
now,
talking about it.
1,500 years later.
Yes.
But right, so it's a story where in the midst of societal collapse and
Mm-hmm.
horrific things happening to people, Nicholas doesn't try to he doesn't try to fix the nation, right? He doesn't try to
Right.
repair the
Oh,
empire. He tries to take care of these three young women, and he
that's
succeeds
so
in this
good, Matt.
example. Yeah,
That's so what Jesus did, isn't it? Don't,
that's
he would
right.
bless and he'd say, don't tell anybody. And they told everybody and the word spread.
That's right.
Right. And here we are. Like I just heard the national news the other night. I was just listening to one of the main channels, and of course, we are in a government shutdown. And then in my area, what's
Hmm.
the SNAP, all the money. And
Yeah.
so they had this
Yeah.
woman on. She was 23. And no, I'm
Oh.
sorry. No, got my numbers mixed up. That a young woman on. He asked how many children. She has three children. He said, "How
Hmm.
much money do you have in your bank account right now?" And she said, $23.
Amazing.
And
Oh, poor thing.
everything in me just was like, I couldn't swallow. It was just really difficult. And I thought, okay, all right, what can I do? I can just sit here and go, oh, that's so
Mm,
sad. But like you, a lantern comes in your front yard. You can throw it away and go, oh man, I have three daughters. That's so sweet. But what I want to be able to do is to take action, no matter how
right.
big or
Right.
small. And I think
Right.
that's what the story of St. Nicholas is reviving in me again. And the way you have the book set up, just to be very clear to you heart lifters, you have to get this. There's 25 readings,
Hmm.
right? Devotionals readings, but you have five parts. Am I right? Yep.
Um,
But you wrote it a
maybe.
while ago.
I know. I'm like, I don't
I don't know.
remember.
You do.
Oh,
Five.
yeah, I do. So it
Yep.
would fit over, yeah, 5 weeks if that's the way you choose to use it.
Right. So it's Nicholas of Patara. That's all about him. But then you have them broken down into prayers.
Yes.
And I love it so much because there are just times, I am in that time where I can't find the words. And so
Mm,
I love the liturgies that are coming out and all of the written prayers that are being revived. And your book gives us prayers and words when perhaps we don't have them ourselves.
right. Right.
I can pray in the
Yeah.
spirit. I got that. I can
Yep.
moan and groan, which I've done. And I have a feeling there are many, many, many listening. We're coming into a holiday season, can be the loneliest time of the year. I'm aware, but I love that you have it so that we are in different stages of his life. So then part two is Nicholas, Bishop of Myra. Part three, Nicholas in Bethlehem. And I
Hmm.
have not read this front to back yet, but I can't wait. Nicholas at Nice, how do you say it? Nice,
Nicaea. Yeah.
Nicaea.
So
Thought so.
Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea is the moment where it's really the first meeting of a giant amount of leaders in the church.
Okay.
And what they're trying to figure out in this meeting is, what do you have to believe to be a Christian? Because there was a big fight going on about whether you had to believe that Jesus is God.
Mm.
And there's a lot of interesting history here. But very, very likely Nicholas was at this meeting, and so was Constantine,
Wow.
and so were a lot of other people. But yes, so incredible, important moment. So you might have heard of the Nicene
Hmm.
Creed,
Yes.
which is sort of a lot of churches will pray this
Hmm.
together.
Hmm.
And what it is just a reminder that all believers throughout history, this is kind of a baseline thing that we all have more or less agreed on. Maybe not the
Right.
exact wording, but the concepts.
Yes, which is currently very present. It's probably going to be present through history, you know.
Right. And that it is interesting. We are working so hard to stay fractured as a community of believers right now by focusing on our disagreements, some of which are very important,
Yes.
some of which are social, some of which are political, some of which are theological.
Hmm.
But what we see the church at this time doing in the midst of really significant disagreement, literally some people died in the midst of this.
Mm.
Uh, what they said was, we need to get together and figure out what we have in common.
Yes.
So how do we serve together? How do we make sure who's in and out? And it's not based on politics. It's not based on
Mhm.
society. It's based on this belief in Jesus, who
Yeah.
Jesus is, who God is. And Nicholas was at those meetings and he felt very passionately about it.
It's so
And
cool.
I don't want to tell you all the Nicholas stories.
Tell me one.
Um,
I have one I have written down from chapter
so
22, a story about.
so Nicholas spends 3 years in prison, three to
Okay.
5 years. We're not 100% sure. During Diocletian, because all he had to do to get out, Diocletian, it was largely political what he's doing. He's like, if you just say, I'll do a sacrifice to one of the Roman gods. I'll let you out. Nicholas said, no, I'm not doing that.
Good
He
for
said, well,
him.
just deny that Jesus is God. I'll let you out. Nicholas says, no, I'm not doing that. But some ministers did because they're like, why? I'm
Wow.
not doing any good in prison. So they would do this thing there, even if they didn't mean it, and they would get out and, go into hiding or go minister, whatever. So what was happening
Mm.
at the Council of Nicaea, Nicholas and others are there who were tortured, who were harmed, who were in prison for a long time.
Wow.
And what was happening is these ministers who had lied to get out or run or hidden would come to the men like Nicholas, who had been in prison, and would say to them, I have to tell you everything I did wrong during this time.
Oh, wow.
And this was the beginning of the tradition in now the Roman Catholic Church of confession.
No,
Because they called these men the confessors. They would go to them and say, what should I do? How do I
I
make
did
this
not know
right?
this. How
Isn't
did
this
I grow up
interesting?
Catholic and not know this?
And so someone like Nicholas, what he would do, and there was actually a big debate about this, you can see this in the Council of Nicaea, was how do we forgive the ministers who denied Christ? And so it wasn't as much what it has become today, which is you go to this person and you share with them and they say, okay, here's how you make penance, right?
Yeah.
It was more a conversation between two people trying to follow Jesus, where the confessors would say, who am I to bring you punishment?
Right.
Like, here's what I think you should do. Here's how to serve Christ well. And it was a moment of forgiveness and reconciliation
How beautiful.
at Nicaea. But Nicholas, there's a moment. So one of the big fights is Jesus actually God? And one of the people on the side saying Jesus is not God is speaking, and we don't know for sure who it was. There's some debate whether it's the guy who was kind of the key guy or one of his followers. But
Okay.
he is standing up and saying in front of Constantine and all these church leaders, and Nicholas was probably there, but also not one of the more important people in the room. He's saying, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's okay that Jesus isn't God. And Nicholas, who was in prison for a number of years, is hearing this and getting more and more upset. And he goes and he slaps the guy in front of
Oh,
everybody,
my goodness.
which is a huge deal because it's actually illegal to do violence in the presence of Constantine. He's the emperor.
Oh, my gosh.
So Nicholas gets thrown in prison again
Oh,
and again for saying that Jesus is God. And then the
wow.
stories, you'll see this in the book, but the stories of
That's what
what
I love about
exactly
it.
happened here is so interesting. Like there's a very religious story, there's a really practical, like political story, but the end result is the question is Nicholas allowed to continue as a priest and as a bishop?
Yeah.
And eventually the answer is like, yeah, but also please don't be hitting heretics. Like we can't be doing that.
We
Not
can't
when
be
the
doing
emperor
that.
is
We
around.
cannot
It's
have
very
rage.
embarrassing. So anyway, it's a great story, and it's certainly in theologian circles. That's one that are like, oh yeah, Nicholas is
Uh-huh.
going to punch somebody out.
Yeah, that's right. I
But
love
it
it.
just shows the passion he had, right,
Yes.
for the truth of who Jesus is, which I think is really beautiful.
I mean, doesn't it remind you of a violent man will take the kingdom by force? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. There are
For
just
sure.
times. That's Old
It's really
Testament
interesting.
for
It's
sure.
literally, with one exception, the only time we see anything approaching violence from Nicholas. And the only other moment we have is and this is in his later life, he's probably in his mid 60s at this point. There's a moment where a Roman executioner is about to cut someone's head off with a sword, and Nicholas grabs it with his hand by the
Wow.
blade to stop the execution because
Oh, Nicholas.
the execution is not correct. It's unjust.
Unjust. Well, that would be the key, wouldn't it? He
But
was all about
those are the only
justice.
two moments in his entire life that mostly what he's known for is being this really mild,
Generous.
kind-hearted, generous person. But yeah, when he gets going,
Well, when he
he
sees
really
such
gets going.
injustice, or when he heard the
Well,
severe injustice that Jesus is not
yeah.
God, it's almost
The moment of
you know,
the execution story, which is actually our oldest Nicholas story and the most likely to be absolutely 100% historically correct. He's on the other side of town in Myra when he hears that this execution is taking place, and in his mid 60s, he runs
Oh,
through the
wow. Oh,
city
my
to get there to
gosh.
stop it. And
I
then,
want to
yeah,
meet
just
him.
grabs him with his hand.
Sounds like Harriet
So,
Tubman. That's exactly what she
uh,
did when she
I mean, it's
was.
incredible, right?
It's just yes, it is incredible. She saw a slave being unjustly, and she got in the way of the owner throwing the brick, and it,
Right.
gave her brain damage for the rest of her life. But it's like
Amazing.
these are not, yes, they're stories, but they're historically correct. And so I think that's
Yeah.
why I get so passionate about the
Mm,
saints, and particularly Saint Nicholas right now that we're talking about him. But it's like I really want to have that kind of fortitude and hope and pray that if and when that were ever the case, I might do the same. But these stories, your book, particularly part 5, let me make sure I say, is Nicholas in the Christian Empire. So
yeah.
they are what you've done here for us, Matt, is all the research. Thank you very much. And consolidated it all in a very extraordinarily different devotional, which I appreciate from the bottom of my heart. We have millions of devotions, right? But devotionals, this is just historically something I can learn. Also, we love to learn here in this community on Cara Empire. We're
Mm,
always listening, we're always learning. So it's all about St. Nick teaching us this holiday season, teaching me, and then I can teach others. So I am so grateful for you for doing all of the research and sharing it with your children. Hashtag Santa fact again and again and again, so that we can sit at St. Nicholas's feet. So before you go, I know that we're really running late, but you and I were talking about the veneration of saints. And
yeah.
having grown up Catholic, I still have a deep respect for a whole lot of the
Mm,
haven that the Catholic Church was for me growing up. Uh, so many Protestants might take issue or have a problem,
yeah.
right, with honoring saints. We
Right.
just had All Saints Day, right, November
Right.
1st. So
Right. Yeah.
tell everyone what you told me about the veneration of saints.
Yeah. So I grew up Protestant. I'm still Protestant. And I think there's a misunderstanding of what's happening in the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox churches when we talk about saints. So, what I was taught growing up is that Catholics pray to the saints. And that's not exactly correct. That's not so. The way to think of it as a Protestant, it's more like this. We know in Hebrews, right, that we talk about there's a great cloud of witnesses watching us run our race, right? That they're cheering us on, that they're watching us try to throw off the sin that so easily entangles. Because they're in the presence of God and they're seeing us and going, oh, I hope he doesn't mess up the way I did.
Oh,
I hope he does better than me at this. Oh, I hope that. Oh, that was an incredible moment. Like, look what just happened. Incredible. Like, let's cheer together, right? It's like a sporting
yes.
event, is how Scripture
Yes.
describes it. And what Catholic and Orthodox people do is they look and they say, here were these amazing fellow brothers and sisters in our history who are now in the presence of God. And why would it be wrong for us to ask for their intervention? It doesn't mean that we can't talk to God ourselves. We can, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way that I might ask my mom to pray for me or my wife, like if there's something that I know from history, Nicholas loves children. And
Oh,
I know that there's an
sweet.
impoverished kid in my neighborhood that I've tried to help. Like, why would it be bad for me to say, Nicholas, could you please tell Jesus to take care of this kid? And
Oh,
that's what's actually happening,
I
right?
really love that.
So it's different than Protestantism for sure, but I don't think it's not something evil, it's not a worship, it's not a movement away from worshiping God. It's just a respect for those who have come before us and
For
set
our
an
elders.
example for us.
Yeah,
Our
it's like
elders,
our
yeah.
elders.
And that's what Nicholas in particular is really interesting. So today the process of becoming a saint is very complicated. And it involves a lot of people signing off, and you have to do a certain number of miracles and like all these things. That was not true for Nicholas.
Okay.
Nicholas became a saint through something we call acclamation. And acclamation is a process where everyone is standing around and they look and go, yeah, obviously, this one's a saint, right? And it was before
I
all the
love that.
processes were in place. So Nicholas doesn't have, probably. There are some stories of miracles, but they come pretty late in the history of. So when we look at the oldest things, we don't see any supernatural miracles. We see one miracle happening over and over, and it is the miracle of loving your neighbor. That is why Nicholas is a saint. And it is the same miracle that every person, regardless of your theology and what you think God will do supernaturally in the world today, every single one of us has access to perform this miracle in our communities, in our families, in our workplaces, which is the miracle of loving others. And that is what Nicholas is famous for. And it is something that is attainable to any follower of Christ, to allow our hearts to be transformed and for the fruit of the Spirit to become clear in our lives to the people around us.
Yeah, that'll be our mission for this Advent, this Christmas season. Because it's not easy to love your neighbor all the time.
No.
It's
not easy to love ourselves or our family or anyone. It's the Holy Spirit empowers us, right? And that's what we keep coming back to is as we're being transformed, become more like Jesus. And that's why the saints. We look at the saints and go, that was a person who is an example of the transformed life. And what do I need? Where do I see defect in my life that is not present in their life? And how can I move toward where they were in their spiritual journey?
For sure. Matt, I am so grateful for this conversation. Thank you
pleasure.
So much for being here with us. I know my heart lifters are going to just be so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Janelle. It was a pleasure to be with you and with the whole community. So, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Heartlifter, thanks for being here today. It wasn't by accident. I know you are here on purpose. I want to close with reading 1 John 4:7-21. May we take these words to heart and follow in the example of St. Nicholas by loving our neighbors as we love ourselves. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us. This is how we know that we live in him and he in us. He has given us of his Spirit. And we have seen and testified that the Father has sent his Son to be the Savior of the world. If anyone acknowledges that Jesus is the Son of God, God lives in them and they in God. And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world, we are like Jesus. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. We love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not yet seen. And he has given us this command: anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. Peace be to you.